Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. It is so good to be back with you guys after a couple weeks. I hope y'all have really enjoyed the last couple of shows. They've just really been important to me. I am so excited to talk to you guys today about some of the things that have been going on in our lives for the past couple of weeks. And I hope that y'all will stick around. For the end of the show, we're going to be talking about some things for our friends that are down in the pit right now or have a spouse that's down in the pit. We're going to be talking about some tools for you guys, and I'm really looking forward to discussing some of those things with y'all, so stick around. We, like any other week, Jay and I always say, why do we have to have a story? Even my team that helps me with my podcast, produces this podcast, is like, why do you always have a story? And it made me feel a little bit dramatic. That's probably the Cajun in me. But I'm like, do all of you not have stories? Because we always have a story. Jay and I always say that nothing can be boring. We would maybe not know what to do with boring. But anytime we take a trip or have a harvest or plant in the field or time with our family, something is going to happen that we need to tell you about it. And so I think that's partly why I have this show. It's a kind of chicken or the egg situation, I want to say. Last week, I was trying to express to you guys that I was a little stuck. That seems to be kind of a recurring theme in my life, and one that I want to research and study and delve into, put pen to paper, so that whatever I can try to figure out, that I can try to pass it along to you guys, what I'm finding and what I'm figuring out. And I was noticing that whenever I was posting on my socials or doing these episodes, I had these things that I wanted to be talking to you about, but it felt really heavy. And so it was something that I for sure probably am a champion level procrastinator. And so I was like, well, that's for then. That's for when we get down the road, and then we'll get into that. And so I talked a lot about going into the arena, but there wasn't very much time spent in the arena. And so if you heard our last episode a couple of weeks ago, I was expressing that I think the reason that is because of how challenging it is inside that space. My boxing coach used to always say, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And I think that is maybe the common misconception is we think that we're just putting it off because we're lazy, or different excuses as to why we're not getting into our lives, into the nitty gritty and plugging in and connecting with ourselves, is because maybe we're distracted with our phones or distracted with our schedules or kids. In reality, for me, I have found that no, it's tough. It is some tough stuff to go in there and to figure out what that actually means to step inside the arena and to connect with something more truer to yourself. I tried to record yesterday with my one lifelong friend. I was born being her best friend, and she mine. Our moms were best friends, and we were expected to become best friends ourselves, fall in line we did. I fell in love with her. I don't think I knew that I couldn't, and she was just that great. And I had her on the show yesterday. And we tried to record, and we live out in the woods. I don't believe that she does. She's more in town. And we had a really big storm. And so I'm thinking that's what was going on with the reception and the trouble that we were having with the app that we were using to record our show with each other. I had really been looking forward to speaking with her, and even more so introducing her to all of you. You'll need to know her. She's just so cool. Everyone I introduce you to, I think you're just really gonna love, because I do, and I feel like y'all will too. But so we tried here, and it just wasn't working. And I said, you know what? Before we call it, why don't I at least just go downstairs? Going downstairs for me means going to like our large living kitchen dining. So there's nothing studio proof about it. The only thing about it is that it's close to the router. I think y'all have seen on one of our other podcast shows, Moving On Again, I brought our camping tent into our dining table and put it over our dining table. I think it's the show with Cam. And some of our friends were like, they asked Jay, do you ever get surprised when you walk into your house and there's a camping tent at your dining table? And he's like, nope. That tells us a lot about us and me. But so I went on down there and tried to get closer to the router. I kind of sacrificed the sound for reception. And it worked for just a minute with Squadcast or Zencast or Zoom or any of that stuff. A lot of times, if it's not working, you just have to like get it, almost like unplugging something for a couple of minutes. It's the same premise. You've got to get out of there, maybe restart your computer, maybe just restart the app, just completely back all the way out and then try to go back in. And a lot of times it will work. So she and I tried that for a few times and ultimately couldn't make it work. And I was so disappointed. Luckily, she felt like it was her fault. I felt like it was my fault. And when you have that mutual stuff going on, you're great. You're golden. And like I said, she and I have been friends from the first minute of my life. And so there's not much we were left explaining to each other. We haven't done the most wonderful job, however, of staying close and connected these past, I don't even want to say how many years, so let's say 10 years. We'll talk maybe once a year, once every, I don't know. Again, that's painful for me to put a time on because I love her so darn much. And so saying stuff out loud, I'm like, let's just leave it not unsaid, you know. Let's just leave it unsaid. So we turn off our computer and I called her to kind of talk because we couldn't hear each other at the very end. So I called her so that we could at least say goodbye. And 2 hours and 45 minutes later, we were still on the phone and Jay was running in. We had reservations. Our anniversary was yesterday. And so he was even able to get on the phone with Kel and talk to her for a little bit. They've never met in person, so that was really nice to hear them speak to each other. I think they even told each other they loved each other. And so I was just floating on air after this 3-hour conversation with her that was supposed to be on air, but I got to have with her privately. If not for this podcast, is about all of the times that we can say, if not for this, we wouldn't have had this. It has me honing in like a little sniper for those moments that they're kind of disguised as negative happenings. But after it's all said and done, you could say, if not for that, or if not for this, if not for the app not working, if not for the computer or our Wi-Fi not working, we would never have been able to get onto our phones for 3 hours and have that connection with each other. And that's the connection that I seek all the time. That's that soul enriched conversation that I want to bring to each of you guys. The thing is, though, when not on air and not on mics, and, you know, Kel was nervous and I was nervous because she was nervous, but I think nerves can be good. But when we got off of those videos and mics and got personal into a phone call, the things that we were able to share with each other were such soulful connections that I'm just so thankful for. And I feel like she is too. I didn't want to have a pre-call with her, just like I don't want to really have any pre-calls with all of my other co-hosts, because I find that connection and that original catching up to be where the magic is. And I have an abnormal fear of redundancy or being too repetitive, repeating myself, or looking inauthentic. So just to give you an example, one of my fears is that I'm going to get on the phone with them. They're going to tell me a hilarious story about their dog. We're going to try to recreate telling that story about their dog on air. And I'm going to have a fake laugh because I've already had a good laugh about it. And so that's a small example, but that can get even bigger into the deep heart stuff. And so it makes me a little nervous to get all of that good stuff out of the way before we can authentically bring it to you guys. After we had that beautiful 2.5, 3-hour conversation, it was very apparent that a pre-call with her needed to take place. I do not believe that it was a coincidence or normal thing that the app didn't work and we weren't able to record a show. I feel like it was shut down. And I had told her she was really nervous about the tech part. She didn't have her own computer. She was borrowing a daughter's, and she had voiced it several times like, I hope I don't mess up the tech. And I was like, girl, everyone around here messes up the tech. We all mess up the tech because of how old we are. Do not worry about that. If for some reason the show gets stopped, we'll just know that we had something really good going on and the dark put a kibosh on it. The adversary, the dark put a stop on us being able to get that good conversation out to folks that needed connection today. And she said, you're right. Let's pray. Let's pray over that and take that back in the name of Jesus. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And after all of it unfolded, and she and I have even kind of started talking about it this morning, I can see how maybe the Lord stopped it. I think maybe God was like, this show, I had such a big purpose for the two of you coming together and creating something that would help others. And you guys have dreamed too small. And so I can see where in sending us a life raft, he turned off our computers. And we were able to get into that good stuff with each other. The side note on is out of the 3 hours, you probably only have 30 minutes that can be said, because when you're right there, nose to nose, you can say whatever you want. That's not necessarily stuff that you can blast to the public. But out of that 2.5, 3 hours, she and I can now come back together after sitting in it for a little bit and picking out those beautiful nuggets that I do believe God had for us to bring to y'all yesterday that I don't think we would have ever gotten there, especially because I know how the front of the show went. All of that to say, I do believe sometimes it is hard to know if something is getting cut from the Lord or from Satan or the dark. But in this instance, I think I can kind of workshop it out that way and figure out that he had something bigger for all of us. And so stay tuned. That's my teaser. I don't think we're going to mess with the computer anymore. I think her and her husband are going to jump in the truck and drive the 7.5 hours. She lives in my hometown near Baton Rouge and Louisiana. I think her and her husband, Kevin, are going to jump in the truck and she's going to come sit in this chair next to me. And I just wanted y'all to know about her before you meet her, because you should be hearing her conversation right now instead of this one. And so that's a way I can kind of bring her love to you guys before she is on camera. At the end of all of our shows, the OCD of my brain likes to have some type of consistency in every show. It was really important that we end the show a certain way. And y'all know that we end by noting a connection that occurred this week that took us by surprise. In getting prepared for her show, my show with Kelly, I had come up with 2. And because I don't know if her show here in the studio will be in a month or 6 months, I don't want those connections to get lost. So I wanted to be able to bring them to you guys today. So the first one actually had 2. It's funny, when I called her, I said, did you think of your connections? And she said, yes, but I have two. Is that okay? And I said, I'm asking you because I have two. So that's kind of neat that she had two instead of one and I had two instead of one. But my first one came, my kids, it's a little bit more simple. My kids have gone to Utah with their dad. They went to Arches and went to Moab and have done all the hiking and mountain stuff. And I've had a really cool week. But on the first night, I was laying on this couch watching TV. This is my loft where we relax. In the evenings is where our studio is. And my phone rang, and it was my oldest daughter. And we were on the phone for about 5-6 minutes, just catching up. I don't try to take much of their time because I want them to know that they can call and just say goodnight and not be held, on the phone. So we hang up, and not 20 seconds later, my middle daughter calls. And same scenario, same situation, catching up on their hike, how it's going, how the drive was. Love you, miss you, get off the phone. Not 20 seconds later, my son, Cash, calls. And we, same exact little song and dance and love. I love them so damn much. And I get off the phone and I look at my call log, and in my phone, I have them as firstborn, Lily, Monk, Liza. I call them all Monkey, Monk and Monkey. Middle child, Liza, and Cashy with a little race car. And he was third, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. And I just sat there and sat in the goodness of it. And I just was like, I want to just sit here for just a second, stay present in, just because I'm not on that trip with them, just because we are divorced and they have another trip that they go on with a family that's not mine, does not mean that I can't have this moment of connection while they're in Utah and I'm here in Texas. And I had to laugh because I thought, I either have 3 really good kids, or I have a really good ex-husband that made our kids call me before bed. And I think the answer is both. And I thought that was a really sweet connection. The second one is a little bit longer. I will try to nutshell it, but we have started wheat harvest on the farm. My husband is a farmer. My stepson is a farmer, of course. And we have our entire crew that is very much like our family. So we started on Monday, and around 5:45, my stepson's girlfriend had come over for the day just to hang out with me. She's had a week off of school before she starts summer school. And I'm so thankful for who she is, because I genuinely enjoy hanging out with her. I love her personality. I love her sense of humor. She seems to get my jokes. And so she's constantly laughing, and I love to be around somebody that loves to laugh. And she's just genuinely a very good person, and I love hanging out with her, and I'm always so thankful for when she'll come over here when it's just me, because I don't have to share her with my stepson. So she had come over all day. She was going to go help clean his room, and I realized that it was dinner time, and I realized that our boys were in the field, and so I called Jay, and I said, do you want us to bring y'all dinner? He said, yes. And so he said, I'm going to call Domino's in. So I tell Mia, do you want to go bring dinner to the guys? And so we go, and her and my stepson, it's important to know that they've been together for 4 years. They've been together since my stepson was 15 years old. They've been together since before they could drive. Us and her parents would have to get them to each other. It's just so funny, the evolution of the relationship. So neat. And again, she's such a catch, and so is he. So we go out to the field. Well, our crew is not together. There's probably 4 in this field and 3 or 4 in this field, and then there's truckers and trucks going between fields, going to the grain bins. And so to be able to find our 15 or 16 crew members and feed them, it's like a little rat race or hide and seek almost. And you could just see her eyes get so big, because maybe she thought that we were going to one field to feed the 15 pizza. And we're stopped on the highway with flashers flagging down a semi truck that I know is one of ours and giving them pizza and sweet tea. She was sitting in my passenger seat, and I think the reason I didn't finish my thought a minute ago, but I think the reason I was telling you guys they've been together for 4 years is because ultimately, this could be her job one day, is finding our crew and feeding them and telling them thank you and being the farm wife. And so we kind of tease about like her being a farm wife in training, but y'all know this new generation, the social anxiety is real and palpable and visible. And luckily, they do have a great sense of humor about it, so we can talk about it. But I got back in the car and she was sitting there and she was like, uh, are, are we just going to keep stopping on the road? And I'm like, yes, how are you doing? Like, are you taking notes? Are you excited that this may be, this, you better pay attention. This may be you. And it kind of razzing her. So the second night comes and I didn't know if she'd want to go with me. And so I call her. She's only got like 5 days off school. I'm like, does she want to spend all 5 nights in the field? And so I call her. I said, do you want to go back to the field with me? And part of me is like, no pressure. I know you only have 5 days, like all that side speak. And I just cut it. I was like, do you want to go to the field with me? She was like, yes, like in all caps. So we loaded the back of the Suburban with a chicken Alfredo, a lasagna, a crap ton of garlic bread, and then I had made these strawberry cake cookies. So we go to the field, and same situation. We're walking the semi-trucks down the road. We're feeding guys from combines, feeding guys working on machines, feeding guys off grain carts, finding Jay, finding Henley. It's muddy, so people are driving back into fields, grabbing people, driving them up as quickly as possible because we can't be stopped. We've got to keep running before the rain and feeding them as fast as we can. And it's just I think it's a neat dance. I don't get to do it near as often as I'd like. And the past couple of years, my mind is I kind of get on one course and hyper-fixated on it. And the past 2 years has been the flip house. And so to be able to have enough brain space to feed the crew has been such a nice return for me. So we get done feeding them, and just like the night before, she had jumped on the combine with Henley, and I had jumped in the truck with Jay, kind of like stealing an hour with our guys. It's kind of our little reward for bringing food, and it's just been really sweet. Her boyfriend, my stepson, his combine breaks down. Henley's combine has been recently the last one to break down. He's really good with his equipment. And that even the crew notes it. It's not ever Henley that's down. He just runs his equipment really well, takes care of it like his dad. But it was very muddy. And so that night, the mud had accumulated so much behind his left front tire that it was pushing on some of the mechanisms of the combine. So he was down. And we're in the dark of the night. The sun had just set. Everybody's equipment had come to help and gotten off theirs. And as the 6 or 7 guys together worked together to kind of attach a tow strap to the mud and pull it, but they all had to stand on the tow strap. It was just this whole thing. But the reason I'm describing it all to you is because of Mia and the conversation that we had. And she just on the drive home, she just almost was in tears. She was just like, what was that? And I was like, right? And she's like, I can't really explain that feeling that our machine was down and everybody stopped what they were doing and they came to help. And then they worked together to solve the problem. And I just stood there and I watched. And I can't even understand the feeling that was in that space. And I said, it was almost spiritual, wasn't it? And she said, yes. And I said, girl, you're ready. You're ready. Because I'd been joking with her all day about becoming a farm wife. And I thought it was so neat that she and I seemingly have something hidden in our hearts to find what our men do in this field, the connection of watching these guys work together for the greater good. And there was even a moment where there was a grain cart with if you've ever been on the farm in the dark, those machines light up, and these combines are just like apartments on wheels. They're gigantic. They're bigger than trash trucks, and they light up. They have lights all around them. And so in the dark of night in the field, we had a combine backed up and a grain cart backed up. And so as I walked through those three machines, it was almost like I was on a Disneyland ride. Like they were just all lit up, and it was just so, I don't know, weird. Not weird, but like not something you do every day. Like you'd have to be there to understand just the magic of it and the connection in the air as they all work together. And I just thought it was neat that instead of my son having a girlfriend that was like checking her watch, checking her phone, that girl didn't get on her phone one time in 3 hours unless she was texting her mom and dad. Not saying, when is this over? When are we going home? When can we quit? When can I get back to my shows? When can I get back to the house? It's cold. We're standing in the rain. We're standing in the mud. She never once said that. And I just thought that all of it was just so connecting and beautiful. And I'm just so glad that out of all of the nights, it could have been a night that we weren't there. And for us to be there together and to share in that connection and then be able to talk about it all the way home and to hear in her voice, what are we making tomorrow? And I've told y'all in previous shows that connection for me is when you hang out with me and then when we're done, you asking, when can we do that again? That is just always that fills my heart and makes my heart sing so much. And so driving home, just talking about meals, what can we make tomorrow? What does that look like? And planning and came up with burritos and what should the burritos be? And what side or what something sweet could we make that would just kind of add a little bit of a special twist to these boring burritos that we had planned. And I just can't even, the whole time I was thinking about y'all, I was like, I cannot wait to tell them about this sweet moment of connection that I feel so blessed that I got to have with her. And I'm thankful, I'm hoping that you guys are looking for them in your lives because it has become such a sweet hobby of mine to pay attention to what does make my heart sing and where those sneaky little moments are coming from in deciding or in workshopping what I wanted to talk to y'all about today. I knew I wanted to tell y'all that story of connection, but I do want to keep the show balanced because in that beautiful moment of connection came a true moment of struggle. And I always want to be able to share the good with you and then keep it balanced with sharing the bad, not keeping things candy-coated or swayed. Jay and I were sitting, before all of that occurred, sitting on a header trailer, which is just a real long trailer that the combine drives up and racks its front. The front is called a header. The header is what cuts the wheat or cuts the corn. So the combine will drive up to the trailer, prop its header onto the header trailer, and then we can haul the header with a truck. And that makes the combine skinnier so that it can get down the road. Jay and I are sitting on the combine trailer. I have pictures, so I'll put them in the show notes or in the social media and stuff. Jay and I are sitting there, and I've got my feet in his lap. He's got his styrofoam cup. We've eaten. We're having just our, like I said a minute ago, kind of our stolen little date. And the air was cool because it was wet, because it was about to rain. And so sitting there in that nice, cool air with their nice little breeze in the middle of this huge field, the sun is setting, and I've got my man, and not much else. And just taking note of how healthy it is to sit there in that night's air, in nature, in outside, not on my phone. Those were the thoughts with my guy in a little stolen date. Those were the thoughts that were going through my mind and I had just taken pictures. So the pictures y'all are going to see were taken about 60 seconds before this next part. I began to hear gunshots. I thought there was a neighboring combine. We could hear him because it was real squeaky and rickety. His machine was needing some work, so you could hear it, could hear his presence. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when I heard the gunshots, I thought it was his engine backfiring. So I hear the first pop, and I didn't think much about it, but I look at Jay, and he kind of straightens up. Then we hear the second pop, and this combine is probably, I would say, there's an entire tree belt between us, but we could see his lights through the trees. It wasn't too thick. Probably 150 yards from us. And we hear the second pop, and Jay jumps up and he says, "Babe, he doesn't know we're here. We need to go. We need to get to the truck as fast as we can." And so I jump into action because Jay is zero dramatic. Like, there's not a dramatic bone in Jay's body. I'm 100% dramatic. Jay's 0%. So I'm following behind him and I'm running, and we're probably only 30 feet from our truck, maybe a little more. And as we're running to the truck for cover, you're just kind of panicking. Like, what if one makes it through the trees? And as we're going, Jay, in this guttural, low, serious, dramatic, I'm telling you, Jay's zero dramatic. So if he ever perchance is dramatic, you're all ears. You're like, what's the non-dramatic man dramatically saying? And in this guttural tone, I'm not even going to be able to say it without crying. He goes, "Oh God, River." And he just said it so low and so serious. River is my pit lab. She doubles as features as my daughter. She's my whole world. She travels with us. She's with me at all times. She's the dog of my life. She's 8, but she doesn't look 8. And she doesn't wander from me. She's pretty obsessed with me. And so even though it didn't make sense in the back of my mind, it didn't make sense for her to be in harm's way because she doesn't wander from me. So, but I couldn't catch up fast enough to the front, reactionary part of my brain that was immediately from Norman's tone saying, and we get in the truck and she's in the truck. She's in the back seat. Because I don't know if I didn't think we were going to be there very long, so I just left her in, or maybe I opened the door and she didn't want to get out. I don't know. I'm not really even sure why she didn't get out with us. I'm so thankful that she didn't, but at the same time, again, she's not a wanderer. She's not, and she's for sure not going to go through some trees to get to a neighboring combine. There's just no way. I don't even know why it got to me, but it did. And so even though I get in the truck, coast is clear, we've avoided something horrific, River is in the back seat, it didn't matter. My anxiety attack was well down the pipe coming. And I knew, because I know exactly what point it's coming, that you're not going to be able to distract it or shoo it off, or it's coming. And so I just kind of braced myself in the truck. And I thought, how can we make this anxiety attack our bitch? Because we're already okay. We're already fine. Our dog is fine. We're safe in the car. No harm came. But either way, this anxiety attack is coming. And so how can we turn it into something helpful instead of something that has me hostage? And immediately this little analogy came to my mind, and it was like, imagine you had like a couch or a few mattresses that you needed taken to the dump. And here in our area, if we want to take a dump truck of ours from the farm to the local dump, it costs about $200 to $500. It's not a cheap trip. So in doing so, when you do need to dispose of some big stuff, big items, you kind of think, okay, what else needs to go? And that's honestly where I was in this situation. Okay, this anxiety has come to release the fear of my dog being shot. My dog is in the back seat. So an anxiety attack that's going to help me with the fear of my dog, that's already been done. He's right here. I'm good. So why don't we utilize it to get some other stuff out? And so it was almost like I had gone through my house to decide what else can fill that truck up to make the load worth the time and money that we're going to spend getting this stuff to the dump. In my anxiety attacks, my arms are locked back on whatever surface, whether it's a chair or a seat or a bed. I hadn't had one in about, I think, a year and a half, but sometimes I feel like I'll just have a bad memory and I don't have a correct memory. Maybe there was one in there somewhere. So I reserve the right to realizing there was another one somewhere in there. My neck gets really stiff and my head pushes back. If I was here, I probably would even reach the wall. And so my neck just is in the largest, stiffest knot, pushing back as with all my might, kind of a super strength might that comes in with an anxiety attack. And there's zero breath. There's no breath. There's no breath coming in. There's no breath coming out. Jay's thing is to say, breathe, babe, breathe, babe, breathe, babe. And I'll try to entertain it and give him a breath so that he can feel like he's helping. And it is just a very shallow joke of an imitation of a breath. Mine lasts 4 minutes. I don't know why I know that. Maybe they happen in the car a lot, and so I'll glance at the time and know how much time I have to deal with this. Of course, I've tried to prematurely stop them, and that's useless. I don't know why they last 4 minutes, but seemingly they hover around that number. And so I knew I had 4 minutes to just get out everything from my house, my body, that needed to go to the dump expressed. And I just kept going through anything that could have stayed in my chest from this argument with Jay, or anything that could have stayed down in my system from something uncomfortable that happened in our family. The death of my grandmother a few weeks ago. The tough conversations and misunderstandings that I've had in some of my relationships, because those are just normal and going to happen. But sometimes I'll internally process those incorrectly. And so I was able to use that anxiety attack to get even more stuff out, and it allowed me to feel in control of the out of control. I had a therapist named Carol. She was so lovely. And she would always say, when you cry, cry harder. I want you to cry this week, and then I want you to cry harder. And then after that, I want you to cry even harder. And she really taught me how to physically get that tension and aggression out of my body through tears and expressing it that way. And I was really thankful that the old me would have said, well, shit, like my record, I got to a year and a half and now I've freaking blown my record and I have to start back. You know, the the guys are like 120 days since our last injury, and they have to erase it and put 0. And that's in my head what's used to. In my head, that's what would be happening is, shoot, I have to stop. I have to start back at 0. And feeling like a failure, and that you're starting back at start and resetting that. And instead of, taking Bob Goff says, take a 3/4 turn and look at it from a different direction. And to be able to look at it from a different direction and think, I don't have to start back at 0. I'm going to do something new with it. And it made me feel really proud of the person that's in charge, ultimately, of taking care of me, which is me. And the further she gets down the road, the safer I feel in her care. And so that was one of those moments where I felt some forward motion. I told you in the first line of the show that I wanted to speak directly. It kind of had on my heart to speak directly to those in our community that are down in the pit, listening from down in the pit. First, I want to tell you thank you, because I know that you don't have a lot of emotional capacity right now. And so for you to use that very tiny amount in giving me a shot, I want to say thank you. And I want to tell you that you trusting me is not something that I take lightly at all. I take it very serious, and I take great pride in this responsibility. This can also be for some of you that maybe you're not down in the pit, but your person is. I know what it's like down there. And I know how lonely it can be. I know how deafening it can be. It's almost like you don't have all of your senses. I will tell you that if it is your other person and you can't really wrap your mind around what they're going through, there is a show on TV right now that I can direct you to that could give you some insight. It's either called The Maid or Maid, and it is a wonderful show. I will link the exact show in our notes, but they do a beautiful job of showing her down in the pit. I was very enamored by the creators and writers knowing exactly how to portray what that's like. And so I will make sure that we put the exact show, but she is being abused by her husband, and she is trying to get her and her kids away from a very abusive situation. And there is a part in the show where she is laying on the couch, and in her mind, she is down in that pit. And her person, her best friend, comes to the trailer door, and she is feet from her. Like you think, oh God, thank God she's going to be saved. And she is feet from her, and the husband is telling the best friend, she's fine. You don't need to be here. You need to leave. She's fine. She's fine. And you know that all she needs to do is open her mouth and say, I'm here. I'm here. Like, come get you're so close. Just take one more step in to save me. And they double the shot, and they take her from in the couch to lake. I think they even actually take her through the couch and show her in the pit. And it's the most accurate portrayal of being down there that I've ever seen. And so when you're down there and you somehow, because of the good people in my life, I'm positive, and because of our Lord, and because of our God's grace and mercy and goodness and love, I made it out of there. But I wanted to make sure, as I've said many, many times before, that I would go get rope and I would come back and get you. And that's what I want to try to help with you today. So I want to take it so simple. I want to make it so simple. I cannot take the spot of your therapist, but I can take the spot of a friend. And I can tell you, for me, this is what worked. And so I'm not licensed. This is not legal. This is not legal advice. This is not licensed therapy advice. This is, I was in the pit and this worked for me. And I'd like to speak some of these tools over you in the meantime of trying to get to a therapist. Hey guys, I wanted to make sure that we did get the end of this show. We had some technical difficulties. Error user, absolutely. My audio ran out of storage, and so even though we got video of the end of the show, we didn't get our audio, and I want to be able to bring you guys the best video and audio. I had alluded to wanting to talk to the people that are down in the pit. At the very beginning of the show, I alluded that those people, those friends in our community here were on my heart the most, obviously because I've been down there and I know what that feels, and I know what it feels like to just be going on with your life, and all of a sudden, it's almost like someone presses a power button and you power down. And so I wanted to be able to pass along some of the things that worked for me when I found myself in the bed, sometimes unable to move, sometimes unable to communicate to my husband what was going on, almost in a prison of sorts. And I wanted to just bring along any type of experience that I had with it that's been on my heart lately to pass that along. And so if you're listening and you haven't found yourself in that situation, you may not get as much out of this as they will, but you may have a friend that happens to, or a spouse. And so if you want to stick around, I will welcome you to, of course, stay here. And I'll obviously thank you for listening to the entire show. If you are somebody, or your spouse is somebody that has found themselves stuck in the bed, unable to move or communicate. When I was stuck there, I think I mentioned earlier in the show, one of my favorite quotes about exercise and movement. Ben Tal-Shahar says that cardiovascular activity is more potent than any psychiatric drug we possess. And I firmly have kind of in my own life proven to myself that favorite quote of mine is accurate. And it's something that I do like to pass along to my friends, and that's what I'd like to do now. If you find yourself stuck in the bed and you're on your side, what I would do on my side, if I could just make one good decision to help myself, because ultimately I have the power within me to move myself forward, up out of that pit, up out of that ditch, out of that funk. I would do some side leg raises, because those leg muscles are so big. And so when we work those leg muscles, your heart is going to get pumping with those big muscle recruitment is going to recruit a lot of extra blood flow. And what we don't realize is the moment we start pumping that blood in our legs, we're pumping it in our hearts, we're pumping it in our brains, and our situation starts to look differently than the fog or the prison we may have been stuck in the past few days. And so if you can muster, I don't care if you can muster 3 this hour, 4 next hour, if you can just try to do some leg raises for me, that would just be, I think that you would really enjoy the results of something that feels so small can turn into something big. If you're stuck on your back, when I was stuck on my back, I would pull my heel. When I would start to come out of it, I'd pull my heels up near my bottom, and I would try to push my hips into the air. Maybe you're going to push it up a centimeter. Maybe you're going to push it up a couple of inches. Stay in your fog if you want. Stay in your funk. You don't have to explain to anyone while you're doing it. You don't have to communicate while you're doing it. But if you can get those hips, just like I said a minute ago, those big leg muscles, in this case, now you're recruiting those glutes and those hamstrings. And so now you have the biggest muscles on your body, your core muscles, your glutes, your hips. And that is, it's just such good news to find yourself in a case where you've decided that you're going to take charge and take control of what's going now. So seemingly something that has happened to you, you have a tool to get out of it. Going to the mind, if I couldn't get my thoughts to stop, I have two things that I would do for this. If I couldn't get my thoughts to stop, it's almost like a little toddler begging for my attention, repeating the same, look at this, mama, look at this, watch me jump. Did you see me jump? Watch me jump, watch me jump. When I feel those racing thoughts, I kind of equate that to a toddler that's needing attention. And so I quickly give my mind attention with a cool thanks. I know that would probably be ugly to say to a toddler, but we're not a toddler. And it is something that is so simple, two quick words, but it allows that thought to, instead of loop and loop or push away, just the acceptance of it and the acknowledgement of it. And you can almost watch it as smoke pop out of your brain. And so when you have those racing thoughts, when I had those racing thoughts, I would say, cool, thanks. Cool, thanks. Thank you for that. Second, if I could not get them to stop racing, because almost in your bed, in that fog, in that pit, is when you're almost held in a situation where those thoughts can bully you the most. You know, when you're going about your day, or you're in the store, or you're on a walk, there's so many things to kind of fill that space. But when you're stuck in that bed, it's almost like you're held captive for the racing thoughts to occur. A lot of times in the morning when I'm not doing well with my mental health, the moment I open my eyes and those racing thoughts assume their position, I have to get out of bed as fast as I can. I know that about myself, that I cannot stay in that bed, or I'm going to do some dealings and wrestlings. So my second thing that I do is I ask the question, I wonder what my next thought will be. And it is something very peculiar and fascinating about that sentence, is for some reason the thoughts will stop and you seemingly can't bring the next thought up. And so if you're somebody like me that just needs a break from those racing thoughts, I wonder what my next thought will be. So you can try that one. If there's nothing going on up there, nothing good, of course, and it's just doom and gloom and silence. Whenever I was in that situation, and this is my last thing I wanted to go over, I love Mel Robbins. She does a countdown from 5 to kind of reset things that are going on. And so I would do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I would add in a bit of truth. So for me, that would look like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am safe and I am not in danger. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am strong enough to get out of this bed and move on with my life. I hope that some of these things that helped me are able to help you pass these things along to your spouse. I have so enjoyed being with all of you, not just today, but especially today. And I cannot wait to hear from you after this show. And I cannot wait to be back with you guys in a couple weeks. You know what I'm going to say. I love you. I love you. That's all there is to it.